And welcome to Recovery This Week. I'm Damon Frank.
And I'm Shauna McKenna Vick.
What's up, Shauna McKenna Vick? How are you? You're on the road, right?
I'm on the road, but I have to tell you, I might sound funny because I just got Invisalign. And let me tell you, I told her, I said, put the regular braces in, not the Invisalign. She's like, no, Shauna, the Invisalign's better. Not when you're a coffee drinker and you're a grazer, because I've got these things in and out all day, brush my teeth. My gums are going to be so healthy. So if I sound like I have a lisp, that's why. Just
Well, I
getting
have
used
to
to
tell you,
them.
okay, well, we will take your lisp and everything
Thanks.
all together here for recovery this week. It's good to connect with you. A lot going on in recovery, a lot going on, I know, in our own lives. Good to join
Mm-hmm.
everybody here, the Recovered Life community. Good to catch up with you. What are you doing in Boston, by the way?
Actually, I'm on a sober companion gig. So you know that I do intervention, sober companion, safe transport. And so I'm living with a young lady who was in treatment, and there was a crisis at her parents' house. Her parents were elderly and she needed to leave treatment. So she wasn't quite finished treatment. And just to have extra sober support, I move in and I'm living with her to give her support. And it's been such a blessing for me because her mom actually has Alzheimer's, and so we're here with the mom and dad, and I am able to care a bit for the mom too. And it's just she's such a delight. What a beautiful, wonderful woman, and my client is amazing, and she's got a lot on her plate, but she put the right guardrails in place by having a sober companion here with her, and she'll go back to treatment tomorrow. So, and then I'll head home to North Carolina. So that's what's up with me.
I love that. I was thinking, I've been thinking a lot lately because it seems like the world's a little bit on fire. And I know that I know a lot of
A little
people
bit.
like, look, I go to 12 step meetings and, I think I had shared before I was going back to a lot more in-person meetings.
Mhm.
And since we last spoke, I went to a sober wedding, which is a trip.
Yeah.
Um, Shout out to my buddy Greg out there. Um, and it was interesting. I reconnected with a lot of people who had
Oh, good.
dispersed from the whole COVID thing,
Of
and which
course.
was my goal. I think the last time that we spoke, that I was going to
Hmm.
really try to do that. It was really interesting. But as I've been plugging into these new sober communities, I
Hmm.
found that wow, like there are more people than I have seen in a long time coming in to get help and trying
Hmm.
to get sober. And I don't know if it's just the times that we're living in or just I'm picking up on it, but a lot of people are
I
making this
I think you're bang
decision.
on because I actually think also this month because people tend to drink more in the summer. They're on holidays, they're on vacations, they're having barbecues, they're outside. They associate alcohol with fun time or fun times with alcohol and being outside in the summer, cracking a beer when you're doing your um, lawn, whatever it is. And just myself, I've had 4 discovery calls from families to talk about intervening on, and they have all been women, okay? All women in their 30s. Either the parents are calling with the husband's calling, or the partner. And that's just this week. So
Yeah. You know
it
what
was
it
real
is?
quiet through June and July, and then this week it's just ramped right up.
Because I think this is the demarcation line here as we move into August. We're getting back to school. We're getting, people. I'm starting to see, look, Costco, my favorite place in the universe. You know that. Shout out to
Yes.
all my Costco homies out there. But I love Costco. And when I go in there and I see Halloween outfits and I see, a pumpkin pillows and all this stuff, I'm like, okay, all right.
Already.
Like I have to start thinking, I got a kid going back to college. We're planning the trip to
Right.
go, the whole thing, right? Like, so I'm like, it's this whole thing. It's like this transition time. But I want to talk with
Correct.
you about this because I get a lot of questions from people, either in recovered life or new people. And these people might identify as somebody who's an alcoholic or not, or a drug addict or not, but they're saying like, hey, when do it's the right time to get sober? they're like, when is and
Oh
I hear
man,
this a
that
lot.
is a
I do.
loaded question. That wow, Damon, you picked the best topics on the Thursday afternoons where we're like brains are spent after busy weeks. This is a good one, Damon.
Well, what's interesting about it is I think as an alcoholic myself in recovery, and I'm sure you're the same way, you had these questions. You know what? I'd like to get sober at some time, but maybe right now isn't the perfect time to get sober because of this, that, the other thing, or
Right. Well,
maybe,
unpacking that, what makes it the perfect? Well, that's exactly right. One of my calls about a mom who's a grandmother as well, so she's 68, and we were talking about it, and they said, "Well, when should we do the intervention? We can't do it in July because of this. We can't do it in August because it's the family vacation." And, so when is the right time? Of course, I said, well, you know what? There's a couple things. Either you're going to have more reason to do it after the family vacation because of the drinking on the family vacation, or you do it before and she goes into treatment and misses one family vacation to get well, and the rest of you preserve and have a chaos free family vacation. That didn't go over well.
well, it's funny. I've been thinking about this a lot lately. And I know you're on the front lines of this because people are making that decision to go into treatment. They're
Right. Or
making
they're
that
calling and saying,
decision,
what do I do about my loved one?
or what do I do? Right? What do I do? Now, it's interesting because as an alcoholic, somebody who's recovered, I think there is one answer to this if I really think it through.
Okay.
Now, I do believe that there are seasons. Like, for example, my season to I was very athletic as a child. I was just telling my daughter this because my daughter's a college athlete.
Right.
And I just said, hey, you have to understand you're in your season. And in a couple years from now, this is over permanently. Like it will never be this season again, right? They're like, a
Mm-hmm.
new season will come, and that's great. But I do believe that there is a season that's easier to get sober. And I believe that that basically starts with the awareness that you need to. Once you have that awareness and you can hold that, or you're reaching out to somebody like you or going into a 12-step group, that is the time because people take it for granted. They think it's going to come back. That
Right.
awareness might not come back. I've seen it not come back with people.
Well, if someone is asking when is the right time to get sober, well, now is the right time because you're asking the question,
Yeah.
right? That's the pre-contemplation stage. I think there may be a problem. I'm not sure I want to do anything about it. The 5 stages of change, pre-contemplation, contemplation, action, something, relapse, and I'll have to look it up. But a lot of people stay in pre-contemplation and contemplation before they even ever take action. And that's how you're assessed by your doctors, by your therapists, by your intake administrators at treatment centers is what stage are you really at? Are you really just thinking about it? Are you ready to take change? And are you going to do the work that it comes? I think people say, well, how do I know if it's time to get sober? Because A, they're afraid of the other side, right? Well, maybe it's not quite time. It's takes work. And I'll tell you, I just said this to a family. It's not easy. It's not cheap if you do the treatment route. If you go to an AA through AA, or you might have to pay for detox. It's not easy. It's not cheap. It's not easy for the person or the whole family. And it's not quick. It's not
Yeah.
quick.
Yeah.
It's a process. It's a lifelong process. But the actual act of getting recovery is not quick. It takes time and it takes work. And I think
You're
people want to
absolutely
say,
right. You're
yeah,
absolutely right. And and I'm going to add to that too, because I think the interesting thing about this is that let's take this idea that an alcoholic or somebody who has addiction problems, it comes into their mind that they're an alcoholic and they're able to either to express it or communicate it to somebody else who expresses it to somebody like you, right? Or they take action like they go to a 12-step meeting or they reach out to a therapist or something.
Mhm.
This is interesting because they've been talking about this for years that like I believe alcoholics suffer from clarity. And I
Okay.
think sometimes I really think that like a lot of recovery is a search for clarity. It's not necessarily agreement. Like I wasn't in agreement that I was an alcoholic when I walked into a 12-step meeting, but I had clarity that something was wrong.
Right.
And I thought it had something to do with drinking. Now, how I thought the solution should happen was totally different than what was proposed to
What?
me and what I had to
Right.
do. But the clarity that there was something wrong and it had to do with my drinking, okay, was was something that I think is unusual for alcoholics. It's not the common state because I think alcoholics spend so much time trying to not be clear about it and it's in a phase or trying to work like if you think back it's like well it's the job, it's school, it's the people, it's the
It's all
relationship.
these
That's
things
why.
happening around me that are causing me
Correct.
to be like this as opposed to myself.
If I didn't have parents like this, or if I didn't
Right.
have these stresses, or if I didn't have these things in my life, right? There's this denial machine running constantly,
Hmm.
fighting it. So to have these moments of clarity that, yes, I have a problem that has something to do with alcohol. I don't know what the solution necessarily is, which most people are at. They don't know what the solution is. They just know something's wrong.
Right.
I think we take that for granted. I have seen people have the moment of clarity, we call the moment of clarity, right? And then
Hmm.
lose the moment of clarity because they didn't take the right actions.
And then it just continues to progress and it gets worse. I want to just stop you for a minute, Damon, and say to the audience, Damon and I identify as alcoholics. We're really comfortable with that label for ourselves. Like, so we throw it around like it's nothing, but we really do recognize that people are uncomfortable with that word. So when you hear us say it, just fill
Yeah.
in your own minds someone with a problem or has a problem with alcohol or is struggling with alcohol. You don't have to say, oh, am I an alcoholic? Okay, but like Damon and I use it very freely because we have no stigma attached to it. I mean, we're in 12-step programs because that's what has worked for us. It's not everybody's path, but it is definitely what's worked for us. And I don't want anyone to shy away from our podcast because we use the term alcoholic. I know
Yeah.
there continues to be stigma around there. So you can say, am I struggling with alcohol right now? And usually, if you actually have to ask yourself that question, you are. Because guess what, Damon? My husband, who's a total normie, who has maybe one beer or he likes bourbon, uh, and in 20 years, I've never seen him drunk, or we've been together 22 years. I've never seen him drunk, never seen him tipsy. Okay. Like this is a man who alcohol is nothing for him. He never, ever, ever asks himself, oh, I wonder if I have a problem with alcohol. Never.
Yeah. Yeah. Because let me tell you, I think problem drinkers do, but I'm glad you mentioned the alcohol thing about alcoholism and non-alcoholism. And I have to be upfront about this. I didn't know what an alcoholic was when I entered a 12-step meeting. I was that ignorant
Right.
to the whole thing, really. And I'm gonna use the word I literally was like things that I said, and I look back on now, I was like, what was I thinking? Right. Like, because I really didn't think that if you went to school, you could have a problem with alcohol. I'd heard the word alcoholic, but I didn't know that was other, like, I didn't know what that meant. I thought that meant homeless people. I gotta be honest, I wasn't sure what that was, but really at the end of the day, it didn't matter. The reason I don't have a problem with alcohol, the word alcoholic, I think very simply is that alcoholism, understanding that I was suffering from alcoholism was a relief for me because I could finally identify and become clear
Identify with
about
that there
what
was an
actually was
issue.
going on
Yeah.
and that there was a solution to this, right? Because I was solutionless when I first asked for help.
Yeah, I just want to pull up Webster's dictionary definition of an alcoholic. And, it really means continued excessive compulsive use of alcoholic drinks. But in the past, of or relating to or caused by alcohol. And, it's like hydrophilic is a liker of water, right? So alcoholic is a liker lover of alcohol. This is an affinity for alcohol. But I love what you said, that it was so nice to hear that, because you knew something was wrong. You knew that this substance had a power over you, but you didn't know how to name it. In my family, my mom was an alcoholic. My grandfather was an alcoholic. Both were in recovery for a time. Both relapse is part of their story. And they both died in their disease. I'm got relapse part of my story. Most of our viewers know that. And my goal is to stay sober for all of us and to continue that legacy. So I grew up not thinking that an alcoholic was someone on the street, because my mom was this 5'8", 120-pound, gorgeous woman, and she was an alcoholic. And so I never had any stigma with the word. I just knew it was a lover of alcohol. And, I never really saw her. I was young. But she was always going to AA or to 12-step meetings and stuff. And, but other people, and the portrayal in the media over the years is that oftentimes it's someone who may be on Skid Row. You don't have to hit that bottom. Your bottom can come up to meet you wherever you are. So if you're thinking, well, I haven't had a DUI, I haven't gotten fired from work, I do drink too much, and I think I drink too much, and I think I'd like to drink less, but I can't seem to do that. There's your bottom. Your bottoms come up to meet you. You don't have to have all those things. You might eventually get to them if you keep drinking. But what a gift to get it early, in the early stages.
Well, when you say, like, when we say, and I agree with you, because when we say, like, how do you know is the time? There was one thing with me that became the time that I knew there was one area that I had crossed. And they talk about that with morality and all these different things. Like, if you all
Right.
never do that, I'll never do this. But there was one thing that finally scared me. And that was when I had made a conscious decision not to drink. Don't remember making the decision to drink, and then found myself drunk. This disturbed me. And this I couldn't explain, right? And it's interesting because somebody had told me later, years later, if you have this clarity that alcohol's the problem, I don't know what I'm going to call myself, whether it's an alcoholic, problem drinker, just somebody who's taking a break, doesn't matter. If you
Mm-hmm.
have that, right, hold on to it and run with it.
Right.
Because just like you had made the decision not to drink and then ended up drunk and never remember making the decision to get drunk or drink, I had lost that defense against the first drink fully. It was like I'd already had, but it was very aware to me that I very had that, just like that, the awareness that this might be an issue might evaporate as well. So to take this season, because if you've had this is going to be the easiest season in which for you to pursue either getting sober, entering into recovery, or finding out what's actually going on.
Right. Right. Yeah. Grab hold of it. I mean, there's a huge movement about, I'm concerned about my drinking. We wouldn't have dry January. We wouldn't have dry July if there weren't a lot of people out there concerned about their alcohol intake. I just want to, you talk for a minute. I need to pull up a stat I just took off Twitter. Pardon me, X. I don't know why I have such a hard time
Yeah,
with that
because it's
change.
always been
Okay,
Twitter.
right. So 30% of American adults don't drink at all. Okay. Another 30% consume on average less than one drink per week. That's probably my husband. On the other hand, are you ready? The top 10% of American adults, 24 million of them, consume an average of 74 drinks per week or a little more than 10 drinks per day.
Wow. What percentage is that? What?
The top 10% of American adults,
Yeah.
24
Top 10%.
million,
Wow. Wow.
74 drinks. Now you say, well, how in God's name could you do 20 or 10 drinks a day? Well, don't forget, at least for me, when I was pouring my drinks, Damon, at home, I wasn't pouring 1 ounce pours. I was
Exactly.
pouring 3 ounce pours. So that's 3 drinks. If I have 3 of those, that's 9 drinks. I mean, I was drinking a fifth of
Yeah.
vodka. So, I mean, that's easily 10 drinks per day. That's 70 drinks per week. When you
Shauna,
think of it in those numbers.
okay, when you look at those numbers and you look at things, this is why I think this is so important, is that when you have the clarity, and it might just be a minute, and then you go back into denial. When you have this clarity, it's like, wow, I think there's something wrong and it might have to do with alcohol. Why I believe it's so important to find the solution. This is why I think it's so important to have like interventionists like you and 12-step groups that are open all the time and hotlines and therapists
Mm-hmm.
and everything, is because you want to align that with the solution of discovery for yourself
Right.
immediately. Because I find that once that ends, that awareness ends, and you either go back into the stream of life and drinking and using drugs again, you get back on that wheel, right? The clarity will come. And I found the clarity very bright when I had it. It was like, now is the time, right? Like something was pulling me. Not everybody has that, but for me, that happened. I have seen people, and I've worked with people, Shauna, that kept saying no to that over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, they were able to get sober, but it was many seasons later and it
Right.
was
And a
much
lot
harder.
happens. Yeah.
A lot happens and it was much harder. It was a
And you
much
lose
more
a
of a
lot of your
struggle.
life. You
A
lose a lot of
lot,
your life.
a lot, a
When I
lot of your
think
life.
how full, because I was sober a long, long time, I had a very full life. I really only drank 2.5 years. Um, and when I think, people say to me, Shauna, how do you know how to do all this stuff? I cook, I garden, I can, preserves, I make jams, jellies, I groom my dogs. How do you do all this stuff? And I think, well, one, because I've been sober a long time, I've learned a variety of skills. I've always been on this quest to do more, learn more, and this excitement and just curious about life. And oh, I see a challenge, I'm going to find the solution. Those 2.5 years, maybe 3 years, I can't remember the exact span. I know I worked to get sober for 2.5 years. I did nothing. They are a blur to me. I don't
Yeah.
remember things from those 2.5 years. And do I regret it? No, I have no regrets about anything because I'm grateful to where I am. But there's so much more to life. Not but, there is so much more to life. To have a life worth living, to create a life worth living, and to really not have to look back and say, I lost X amount of years. Like I lost 3 years of my daughter's life that I'm never going to get back again.
Yeah. And I think that stops people a lot of the times because they figure, I know for me, I said, if I give up now, what's all this battle to be able to drink like a gentleman meant? What does this mean? That was the worst question I ever had. Well, what does this mean? What does this mean I am? Will I be without alcohol? One
Right.
of the things that I see, most people that come in lie. I know I was a liar when I came in. I lied about what was really going on. And miraculously, I told somebody actually what was going on. I don't know why, but I just felt they were in they understood. They took me out to coffee after me, and I literally told them what was going on, and they were truthful with me about what was going to happen to me if I didn't make that decision.
Right.
Right. And I think if people are listening out there, I think the right time is now. The
Yeah.
right time is
The
always
right
right
time
now.
is now.
Yeah, right now.
Right now, there's so much to live for, so much. And regardless of the dumpster fire that's going on all around us, an election year, the wars, whatever, regardless, what we have is only in our locus of control, and we can make it big and brilliant and wonderful.
Absolutely, we can. Absolutely, we can. So have fun in Boston. We're going to be doing these more regularly
It's
now,
work.
and yeah, it's work. But I mean, how great to be able to see that playing out with somebody else. I mean,
Yes,
that's one of the things that
yes.
I had missed, I think, with with going to a lot of newcomer 12-step meetings, is being able to see them get it,
Mm-hmm.
because it made me see me get it in my own life, right? Um, and look, not only do you have to get sober, but then you have to maintain staying sober, which
Mm-hmm.
is really what this is about. It's not about just getting sober. It's about maintaining being sober and having that best recovered life.
Right. That's why we do what we do, so people can have a recovered life, right, Damon? Look forward to
Absolutely.
next week. We'll have to come up with it. Mind you, we could probably milk this topic for a while. It's such a great topic. Thanks for picking it today, Damon.
All right. Have a really great one. Everybody out there, go live your best recovered life. We'll see you next week.